Hi, guys, and happy Sunday night. I am recording this weekly update to give you an update and kind of a clarification on last week's content and also set you up for success this week. So, hopefully, you can listen in and it'll clarify any questions that you may have had lingering from last week's material. So, this update is for the second week of this 5-week class, which means you're making progress. Congratulations on a successful first week. Okay, you should keep kind of 3 general things in mind this week. The first is what you have to do right now, kind of triage, problem solving. What are your emergencies for this week? And your emergencies are kind of 2 units. You are going to be doing a unit on punking culture, which talks about culture jamming, which interrupts the understanding that we had of last week regarding the culture of cool and capitalism's influence on that. And then you also have a second unit this week that is about popular culture and war and the connection, or maybe not, between those two, which means you have reading and YouTube clips and all sorts of stuff under the weekly modules. And you also have 2 quizzes to take this week. Quiz 3 needs to be taken by 5 o'clock on Tuesday, and quiz 4 needs to be taken by 5 o'clock on the 25th of May. Second, you have to get prepared for this weekend, and that is for your exam number 1. So you need to fill out the study guide. That's under the study guide tab on the left-hand side of the Blackboard site. It's been up since the first day of class, so hopefully a lot of you have been filling it out as you go. And you need to start studying for the exam. There's a few ways you can do that. First is the study guide. Second, you should absolutely study your old quizzes, including the quiz answers that I have posted on the left-hand side on the quiz answers tab. And also, if you wanted, you could get together via Twitter or some other resource as a class and study. And I'm always available for questions if you have any over the study guide. And you need to take the exam by the 28th of May, which is Sunday at 5 o'clock, and you should allow 75 minutes. Okay, and then the third thing is how you can move forward. By the middle of this week, I'll be posting the updated weekly modules, so everything after exam number 1 through the final exam. And also you should be thinking about the Problem Solver project because that due date is coming up on the 7th of June. And there is a lengthy assignment guide and rubric listed under assignment descriptions, which is on the left-hand side of the Blackboard site. All right, let's talk about some stuff that we did last week. I saw a couple themes that I want to touch base with you about. One, as you probably noticed from my feedback to you on the quizzes, you need more specificity in answers. Okay, so you can't just say culture or it's popular or things like that, or you can't just say narrative means stories. You really have to be specific and make sure that your language shows the nuance of the material. 2, it seems like you need to rethink your quizzes. So a couple of you didn't get done in the 12 minutes. Remember, these are not take-home quizzes, meaning you have unlimited amount of time. I assume that you are taking these quizzes after you have already done the reading, after you've watched the YouTube clips, after you've done the discussion boards. And so that way you're prepared, and you might have a question or two, and so you're spot checking your answers, but you are not reading the material at the time of the taking of the quiz. So 12 minutes should be enough time. Also, make sure before you take the quiz that you've taken a look at the Prezi that's posted under the weekly module. And for the first couple units, I have discussion questions to kind of guide you as you move through that Prezi. But that Prezi is kind of like my lecture for every day, and it will really help clarify a lot of things. There's been a lot of good work on the discussion board. In particular, if you're looking for some classmates to check out, I would check out the McLean and Verndon pieces. Both of those people had really complete and helpful posts. I want to talk a little bit about content from last week. So the understanding of the rhetorical perspectives is pretty good. It does seem like you're missing some specific vocabulary words that you can find in that Prezi from the unit, from that very introductory kind of orientation unit. In addition, I want to remind you that the Neo-Aristotelian model is primarily used to understand public address. So several of you got that question wrong on the quiz, and so I want to reiterate. Neo-Aristotelian typically looks at memory, at organization, at invention, arrangement, those types of things, which are typically associated with speeches or oratory, so not as helpful from a pop culture perspective. All right, the cycle of cool. So a lot of you got the multiple choice question right regarding Thomas's Frank article, but then your short answer article or question wasn't so good on the quiz. So remember, the culture of cool in that cycle says that mainstream culture creates and feeds into subculture and vice versa. And subculture is also known as counterculture. And Thomas Frank really says that there's no such thing as counterculture. So I'm sorry to say, but he wouldn't think that any of you are kind of special snowflakes. He says that we all really want as consumers is to be cool. And so we are willing to buy anything that mainstream culture tells us to buy in order to be perceived as cool. And if you've watched that Prezi, you know that I start with a Levi's commercial that riffs on O Pioneer, that poem by Whitman. And it really talks a lot about how kind of the youth are persuaded by this idea that they're pioneers or that they're rebels. And Levi's really taps into that in order to sell you a product that kind of represents that lifestyle. And I think that Levi's commercial really shows the full circle of the culture of cool, which is mainstream culture creates a value system and then they try to sell you a product for that value system. As one of my former students said a few semesters ago, he says, yeah, I mean, if there's no culture of cool, then why is JCPenney selling hipster skinny jeans? And he had a point. Also, cultural literacy. I want to remind you all that cultural literacy in and of itself isn't a bad thing. In fact, cultural literacy is pretty good. It gives us the tools and the ability to communicate with people within our cultures and our subcultures. However, what happens is because, data is our currency, we really don't like to be perceived as someone who doesn't know anything or doesn't know enough. And that's why I'll fake cultural literacy when someone talks to me about Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, both of which I had to give up on because they were too violent. So it's like I have shame about that for some reason. And so I fake cultural literacy so that people will think of me as, well read or well watched. And what the article says is that we in the United States right now place more premium on acting like we know something than actually knowing something. And, then in that last article that you read, it really shows the impact of that for the political landscape. Okay, so if you're feeling not okay on the content, there's a couple things I would recommend. First, I think you should go back and reread Thomas Frank. I understand that he's kind of one of the more dense articles that we've had to read. And so now that you've had a little bit more time to process and unpack that reading, I think you go back and take a look at him again. Also, I think you need to be thinking of examples and be looking at the discussion boards to see how your peers have framed those examples as well. You're going to need plenty of examples on the exam, both of the perspectives of kind of this culture of cool cycle, of examples of like faking cultural literacy or having someone else fake cultural literacy in front of you. So really be thinking about that kind of stuff. And if you're struggling on the reading, remember that in this most recent unit that you read at the end of last week, I put a PowerPoint slide in there giving you some helpful hints on how to do academic reading. But I'm always happy to talk about these things and other things with you. My office hours are Wednesday morning on Skype. KL McAuliffe is my Skype name, but I'm happy to make an appointment with you at any other time. All right, keep working. I really appreciate all your hard work so far, and I look forward to reading even more discussion board answers and seeing your next 2 quiz answers. All right, keep plugging along, guys.